What's happening, everybody? It's Kyra and Ben back again. So this week we are taking a break from suggestions and we're just covering a few films that we've been talking about lately and that we're really excited about. So kicking it off, our first film is going to be The Banshees of Inisherin. Ben, kind of tell me about your history with this film. It's a newer one.
So you had mentioned that it was up for an Academy Award and to check it out. So I ended up having a day off and I ended up watching it. And yeah.
So I am a really big fan of this movie. I also just watched it when it had first come out. I didn't see it in theaters. I did watch it on streaming. I am a big fan of this movie. I really like the trio of Martin McDonagh, Colin Farrell, and Brendan Gleeson. I think they work really well together. I did love In Bruges. When that came out in the early 2000s, I thought that movie was hilarious. No, did you see that?
No, I did not.
Okay, so it's so funny. So they play like hitmen, and then he's like, I don't want to die in Bruges, and then he like dies in like Belgium. It's very funny. It's very silly. It has the same like themes of like being like a dark comedy like this one does. This one to me was better though, like a more fulfilling story. I thought
it was weird. I thought it was very weird. I was watching it and I was like, this is absolutely insane. Two friends, the guy doesn't want to be his friend and decides that if you keep on trying to be my friend, I'm going to cut my fingers off. And I was like, what? What the hell? What the hell is it? What kind of crazy movie is got me watching?
So let's talk about the story a little bit. So it follows these two friends. They live on a coastal island off of Ireland it's a fictional island called Inisherin, and is set in 1923. And the only reason why this is important is because the Irish Revolution is happening on the mainland. It is always in the distance. They talk about hearing the bombs. They talk about this fighting that is happening over there. And when Colin Farrell's sister ends up inevitably at the end of the movie leaving the island, she actually talks to him in the letter about how the conflict is coming to an end and he would be able to find work and things like that. So I do not know much about the Irish Revolution. I know about it because I did learn about it, but I'm not well versed in it. I was doing a lot of research for it while preparing for this episode of the podcast because I watched actually a very interesting video essay about this movie and how this is actually an allegory for the Irish Revolution. We have Colm, who is the IRA, and then we have Padaric being free states. And I think we can get into this a little bit or a lot of it. It's most of what I want to talk about because I think it's a really interesting because even though it is a similar conflict that is happening through these two friends, it is set with the backdrop of this Irish Revolution. So we have Colm, who is the IRA essentially, who is just continually hurting himself for a cause. And it's like, what cause are you hurting yourself for? Like, you're causing turmoil within this community. And you see the free states, or Colin Farrell's character Padaric, always trying to like reconcile and come to and be like, let's talk about this, like, let's not fight. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like,
I wish I had seen that because I didn't see that and I didn't know none of that. So I just saw this movie where this guy's chopping off his fingers and I'm going, what am I watching? But now that you've put that out there, I'm like, oh,
you're like,
okay.
Oh, I see it.
I see it now.
Yeah, because it's so interesting. So Colm, his big thing is he is sick of Padaric's friendship. He's like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. You're dull to me. I want to spend all my time composing this piece of art, right?
Yeah, music. Yeah.
But as he's saying this, he's like, so if you talk to me, I'm going to cut my fingers off. And what's the point of cutting your fingers off if you're trying to compose a piece of music? We see it towards the end where he can't even play his viola because he has no fingers.
Right. And was that metaphoric, like him saying he wanted to cut off his fingers because he couldn't finish the piece he was working on? Because in his mind, he knew in his own right that he would never be able to finish this piece no matter what he did. So he used it as an excuse to cut his fingers off so he would never have to.
No, I think he cut his fingers off because he was being selfish and stupid. And I don't think he understood like whatever conflict that he was having within himself. You see it when he's talking like to the priest in confession. And I want to talk about those scenes specifically as well. When he's talking to the priest in confession, he's talking about the despair coming back. And you can see that he is really struggling. And I think he's doing this as just like a way to sort of cope with how he's feeling. And I think he doesn't I feel like he understands the hurt that he's performing and doing to himself as well to Podrick, as well as to the other people in this community. Like the breaking up of this friendship has really shaken the whole island.
Yeah, so that would be like the IRA knowing that they're causing all kinds of turmoil and strife, but believing that no matter what they did, they are in the correct.
They are in the correct. And you see it when the IRA actively fights. They like hire Irish soldiers to fight and kill other Irish people. And I think, and it's like, you're just hurting yourself.
Right.
You're not moving the cause forward. And I think we see this because as the fight goes on for Irish independence, they kind of not that they forget what they're fighting about, but it kind of gets lost in translation. And they're like, why are we still so angry with each other? We're only hurting each other. We're tearing families apart. We're tearing friends apart. This is who we're hurting. And I think it's really interesting just because obviously the IRA was Protestants and the Free State was Catholic. And you see in this movie, the priest specifically siding with Podrick, who represents the Free States, and in confession saying to Colm, I can't give you confession.
Right.
You're doing X, Y, and Z. And I found that very interesting.
Self-mutilation.
Yeah.
Yes, like all that stuff against the Bible.
Yeah. So I found that was really interesting because the Catholic Church did side with the Free States during this, and we see the Catholic or the church figure in this small town siding with Podrick. And then we also have who I would call the British rule, which is the one cop on the island.
Oh, yeah, he's a jerk.
He's such a jerk. And I think because he's kind of this only like one sort of figure of authority there. And you can see that it's the only time that Colm and Podrick become united is when they are against him. They're with him sometimes. Well, Podrick's always against him, but Colm's with him sometimes, but then they're always against each other. Like you see when he comes up to Podrick in the bar and he's like, I'm going to beat you. You deserve it, blah, 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 whatever. And Colm punches him out and knocks him out.
Yeah.
And we see them come together to fight the bigger evil, which is the British Empire, which is another part of this like revolution is like you're tearing your people apart and you shouldn't be fighting each other. You should be fighting the British.
Right. He did it because he threw fingers at the house to show that he was serious about, and then the mule died.
Yeah, but I was just talking about the cop. Yeah. And so I didn't realize how significant, now that we're going to talk about Jenny, I didn't realize how significant donkeys were in Irish culture. So it is like a donkey is like a very high symbol.
Yeah. I didn't know that either. I'm Irish.
I'm also not Irish.
I am Irish. I'm sorry. Mom, forgive me.
So I think it's really interesting, this scene specifically. So we see he cares for his animals the most.
Yeah.
Right? This is all he wants. I love how he's always trying to bring Jenny into the house, always trying to like have his animals in the house. I love it. So in a fit of Podrick trying to stand up for himself to Colm, he's like, we're going to be friends. He like bursts into his house. Colm comes and he cuts off the rest of his 4 fingers. So before he's just done one and now his whole left hand is gone. And he litters them around Podrick's house. Jenny, just a miniature wee donkey, doesn't know, eats a finger, chokes on it, and dies.
Yeah.
Now, this has devastated Podrick to the point where he goes to threaten Colm and saying that he's going to burn down his house, which he does.
Yes.
Honestly, I thought it was so funny. I was watching this, and he's burning down a concrete house. Like, did you notice? I was like, oh my God. So I thought that was cute because I was like, the house isn't going to fully burn down. No. And obviously Colm escaped. But I thought it was really interesting that even though he wanted to commit this act of violence towards his ex-friend, he still saved the dog. So let's talk about the character of Dominic next, who I think was just kind of a byproduct of like the island and of this like falling out. And he just wanted love and like acceptance and like, I don't know. I think when we see Podrick kind of turning into an asshole as like his friendship with Colm is disintegrating, and you see him and Dominic trying to come to him, and you see him pushing Dominic away. And I think it's really sad because Dominic is just looking for like that friend. And I think when he's talking to Siobhan by the water and he's like, do you ever think like you could fall in love with someone like me? Like, and then she's like, no. And he's like, oh, my dream's dead. Like, that like devastated me.
Yeah.
I felt so, like he was just so misunderstood. His dad was beating him. He just wanted connection. But I really liked him. When he died at the end, that was shocking to me.
No, I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be him, but the witch made it seem like someone was definitely going to die, and it was going to be tragic at that lake. And
it was him.
It was him.
Which was tragic. I mean, okay, so now that we've brought up the character of Mrs. McCormick, she, as I've seen in movies before, I like to call them plot witches, where they just move around and drive the plot forward. But I think in this one, she meant a little bit more than that. I think she was like a literal banshee. Like, I think that's like what her... So, like, a banshee is a harbinger of, like a spirit harbinger of death, I would say, and sadness and pain. So I think her kind of like walking around and like sulking the island and like predicting things that is going to happen, I think that's what she represented, even though she did like drive the plot with these like negative things by like being like, this is going to happen, and just like kind of like always being in the background.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting because as I was doing some research on banshees, they say that there's typically one banshee for every family, but this island only has one banshee. So I think it's supposed to speak to like how close knit and how tight this one community is, which further leads to like how this eruption of a friendship is like really tearing the community apart.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. I thought it was funny. I always love when they use the title of the movie in the movie. So when he's talking about the song, he's like, I think I'm going to call it the Banshees of Inisherin. And I was like, that's the name of the movie.
You can see how, like, when they're in the bar and they're not together, how affected the other people of the town are. Because they, they're like, you guys aren't going to talk. You guys aren't going to work this out, And then, when one guy gets mad and they're like, okay, we don't want to make you mad. We just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting to see, like, the difference. Like, so there's basically, like, two main places that this movie takes place: outside and then in the bar. And I think it's so funny how like bar is this one like epicenter for the whole town. It's like where everyone goes. It's like 2 p.m. he's always there having a pint. 4 p.m. someone's having a sherry. Like, I thought that was very cool. It kind of gave me like a Cheers vibe. But it's true, like you see them and you see the bartender initially being like, I don't understand why Colm's not with you, and he's like, I don't know either. And then to see how, I think it's just so interesting how we're all connected, and to see how because Colm's doing this and thinking in his head, I'm doing this for myself. This is what's best for me. And everyone around him is like, can't you see how this is affecting us?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what is happening?
So I grew up in neighborhoods where bars were centerpieces, like Hogan's to Tony's Pub. And all our friends would go and meet on the weekends at these pubs, and we'd like play darts, play pool, and it was like the hub for us. Like, we all meet there. Everybody we knew would come meet us there. We might go to other places, but we knew the bartenders.
Yeah,
we knew everybody, and it was like our place. It became our place. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of got that vibe with this. I understood it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have a place like that, you just grow that community and that sense of like togetherness, which I think this movie is a good showing of like how we are all connected in this togetherness, even if we're trying to separate ourselves from it. And we just see it mostly with Colm trying to like, and like he's just like, his reasons are so arbitrary, which I think are so funny. It's like, he's dull. He just has idle chit chat. Like, he talked to me for 2 hours about shit. Like, and it's like, yeah, but what else is there to do on this friggin' island?
Well, I mean, if you look at it like as a religious thing, a lot of people view Catholicism as boring,
right?
One-sided, something that like is just draining and like beaten into you every day. Every day, it's the same routine. And a lot of people want to break away from that because they're like, you know what, this is something that's old and dull and it's just not for me. And then you can view it as like, the Protestants saying that about the Catholics.
Yeah. So. That's so true. And yeah, and it's really interesting. Like, I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I agree. Like,
I do that to you a lot. Yeah.
No,
I sap her will. No. That's what I do here, people.
No. But no, I totally agree because you can see like the boringness and the mundaneness and like in all those things.
Yeah, I agree. Like, let's face it, not a lot of people going to church these days.
No.
Just saying.
But I also think, like, I don't know. I grew up in the church. I still go to church sometimes. It is very important to my family. But I feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy within religion, and I think it's more within how people practice it versus how it is, like, written. Because, I mean, it's all up into interpretation. And I think now people have, like, a lower of a bullshit meter. But back to Banshees of Inisherin. Let's talk. I think one thing I thought was so funny is in this small town, we have the telegraph lady. I forget her name. And she is, like, all about the gossip.
Yeah.
And I think what I really liked that showed me that Padaric was a good person is when you have the cop come in and he's gossiping about how these people have been dying and, like, just being very cavalier. And Colm Farrell kind of stands up to him and he's like, well, I heard you beat the shit out of your son with a kettle. And then the woman's like, that kind of sucks for gossip. He's like, it's literally the same thing. Like, you guys are, like, just because it's about someone you know, like, I think that was really interesting how, like, they can talk very cavalierly about other people, but, like, when you bring up someone in the room, like, and they're confronted with that, like, you can't. And then we see it obviously rattles the policeman that he beats him up outside. And then you see Colm and Padaric coming together again because the IRA and the Free States would always, like, they have a common enemy, which is the British Empire, which they had a common enemy, which was this asshole policeman. So I thought it was really interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm really off base. I did enjoy this movie. I thought the way that it was filmed also was very heartbreaking to me because even though it was, like, a pretty, like, well-paced movie, it, like, the long shots just filled me with so much despair. Like, I was filled with despair.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it was a very, like, the scenery and everything was beautiful, but, like, it was just such a sad movie. Like, you're like, because you see these two people who were friends for a long time and they no longer have the friendship. You see the sister who's desperately trying to get off the island and do something with her life. You see, over in the distance, you see Ireland itself torn apart by, inner conflict. And it was just, like, it was very sad.
It was very sad. And I think, though, that it's, like, it's also, like, something that just happens. And I think this movie does a good job of showing it, even if reasons aren't correct or right, like, people change. I guess that's, like, the thing, like, people change, right? But at the same time, everyone stays the same. Because at the end of the movie, you see them talking together on the beach, and he's like, oh, I guess this is, like, peace for now, or something like that. And then as Padaric walks away, it pans out, and you see Mrs. McCormick still there, kind of, to me, symbolizing that there's still a lot of mayhem to come. Like, this isn't resolved.
Right. I mean, in a relationship, when you get into a relationship, when it first starts, it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting, you're having a great time, but then it starts to dwindle. It starts, you see little innuendos of the other person that you really don't like. You see, the thrill is gone. It becomes, I mean, not all the time, I'm saying, but a lot of the times you see, like, what you were infatuated with goes away.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think the more you get to know someone, I mean, no one's perfect.
No. And also, you might have, like, expectations of the person that aren't real.
Exactly.
You'd be like, oh, this person's the best in the world. Like, I know from a lot of my relationships, I was the fixer. I saw someone that was broken. I thought I could fix them because I was broken myself. And all it did was cause more kinds of crap in my life than I can imagine and cause more strife and more pain. And then when I stopped searching for that type of person, I end up marrying my wife, who is the total opposite and is nothing like the type of person I would ever thought I would have married.
But look at you now.
Look at me now.
Look at you now.
Look at us
Happily
now. married. Okay.
Yes. Bye.
Yes.
I'm telling
Happily
Kim. No, I'm playing. But, like, no, I think that's so true. And, like, I think it's just so funny because when you have the death of a relationship, there's always going to be one person that's rejected. And that's going to be the person that is constantly looking for, like, that inkling of, like, what did I do wrong? I think it's very human for us to not to want clarity on why something happened to us, right? Like, that's, like, all he's searching for. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong to you. If I did, let me know. I'll apologize. And I just think it was so unfair on Colm's end to be like, yeah, you're just dull. I'm bored. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, it's hurtful when you reject someone.
Oh, 100%. And, like, there's always sides. Like, you'll have tons of friends in a relationship, and you guys are friends together, and then when you break up, there's sides.
There's sides.
And people that you thought were your friend may side with the other person. And that's just how it goes.
That's just how it goes. And I think, so I have friends, obviously. I'm not a loner. I have friends.
It's good to know that.
I don't know why I said it like that. Like, I have friends.
She's somebody.
No, but I just had this friend who went through a very difficult time in her life, and she just went through, I think, one of the worst breakups I've ever seen. And I thought it was really funny how everyone chose her side and how she was like so nervous that they wouldn't. And the only reason why I bring this up is because in this movie, people will always kind of side with, like, I don't want to say like the victim, but like the rejected, right? So I just think that's interesting because you do see a lot of the town appreciating both Colm and Padaric, but kind of leaning more with Padaric than Colm, because they kind of see Colm as like this like kind of like madman. He's like turning insane. He's chopping his fingers off. He's just like sitting in the bar, just like trying to compose music. And I think it's really interesting because in Colm's head, I don't think he thought he would be the one on the outs.
Yeah.
Not that he's specifically on the outs, but that he doesn't have the same supports as like Padaric, I would say, even though Padaric feels so alone.
Yeah, but then he brings in his own
like, people
support group, and then what do you call it? Padaric sabotages it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of like, you are basically the person that everybody's looking at, going, "Wow, yeah, I feel bad for you." But then you do these things that kind of make it like, all right, well, you're kind of throwing wood on the fire.
And then he literally threw wood on Colm's house to burn it down.
Yeah, to pay back for the mini donkey.
Payback for the mini donkey.
I was so sad for the mini donkey. I liked the mini donkey.
I liked Jenny.
I was like, oh, wait a minute. You killed the donkey. And I did think it was when he came into the bar and he was like, I'm going to, he's upset and he's yelling at the guy. And he tells him about the donkey. He's like, your donkey died? He's like, my donkey died. He's like, he choked on your finger. And then the cop comes in, he's going to punch him, and he's like, his donkey died. He goes, I don't give a shit. And then he knocks him.
Yeah, because Colm never wanted to hurt anyone except for himself and Padaric. I think that's why he threw the fingers. Like, you could just cut off your own fingers and not give them to him.
Yeah.
Or like maybe put them in like a nice little box, wrap it up. I don't know. So I think it's when he sees like a consequence of his action that he wasn't even anticipating, it kind of grounds him a little bit. And then he does defend Padaric.
So would that be like the IRA saying, like, when they bomb stuff and hurt innocent people, that they really felt terrible because they didn't want to do that? That wasn't their intentions?
Yeah. I absolutely think that.
Okay.
Even though they're doing it for their cause.
Right. I mean, what is it? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one. I'll throw a Star Trek reference in there. I'll say I won't. I'll throw Spock out there all day, buddy.
And then I think it's interesting because then the only ones that are hurt, especially when we see like within the free states and the IRA, is families. It's friends. It's people who's getting ripped apart because they're on the wrong side of this.
Yeah, it's like the Civil War. It's like RRR.
It's like, yeah, it's very, this movie, I mean, I guess we're covering a lot of movies about British tyranny in different ways. And I think this movie kind of fits into that category because the Irish are fighting from the British. And it's just interesting that this movie related to all that we've been covering in other films.
Right. And I mean, if you look at like over the film lore, British isn't portrayed as a great people. I mean, if you look at Braveheart, what was the thing he said? Let's have sex with the women and breed them out.
Yeah.
I mean, so British rulers were not like the most kind and generous to the people they took over. They were like very, you're our subservience and we're going to treat you like nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a colonizer, you have to have that mindset because that's how you can like literally overtake like colonies and people and
the Spaniards and
the French.
Yeah.
God, we haven't even started talking about the atrocities of the French yet.
Yeah, no.
But we'll stick to the British for now.
Hey,
UK. But no, so this movie was nominated for a lot of Oscars. Yeah. It did not win a single one. It did lose consistently to Everything Everywhere, which I think is so I love both these movies. Could not pick a favorite between the two. Maybe Everything Everywhere, just because it's a different type of film.
Right. Yeah. View it the same.
You can't view it the same. This one is much more
in depth.
Yeah, in depth, atmospheric. I would say it's way more moody.
Deeper roots.
Yeah, deeper roots. But I mean, if you haven't listened to our episode about Everything Everywhere All at Once, I highly encourage you to also see the movie. These are great movies. A lot of good movies, I think, have been coming out lately. Yeah. I think we're in this era where we're trying to promote so much like new content, or even like old like things being revived with new context. And I think it's great, and I love seeing it. I love hearing new voices. Obviously Martin McDowell is not a new voice. As we've said, this is another film of his that he has done with this duo. But I think he does it so well, and I think he works with them again because he knows how to tap into their chemistry. Like, obviously, like, this is a devastating film about the end of a friendship, but like, you could feel their friendship.
Yeah. And what did, one of the characters was Mad Eye Moody from...
Is Brendan Gleeson Mad Eye Moody?
Yeah, he's from Harry Potter.
That's really him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because my wife pointed that out when I was watching it.
Okay.
She looked up on her phone. She's like, "That's Mad Eye Moody." And I went, okay.
Okay. So that was said to me during the viewing, and I was like, I don't know.
It was.
That's so funny. So Brendan Gleeson and Domhnall Gleeson were both in Harry Potter.
That's awesome.
They're father and son.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Well, it's not Gleeson.
Gleeson. How many Gleesons are there?
Jackie Gleason, the honeymooners.
That's true. That's true. No, I like Domhnall Gleeson. I was waiting for him to show up in this. Okay, that is a sidetrack. I'm so sorry. I'm going on a tangent now. So back to the Banshees. So it was nominated. It did lose. I would highly recommend it, though. I think it is a great film. And honestly, like, we are taking different things out of it than you would take. And obviously, we started this podcast talking about it in two different ways. So I think it's a great movie up for interpretation. I mean, everyone, I think, can relate to it because everyone has had a falling out. Yes. Everyone has either had a breakup, a falling out, and everyone can understand and I think relate to this. It doesn't feel...
It doesn't have to be a relationship either. It can be family.
It can be family. It can be literally any sort of relationship or bond that you have with a person that is ending. And I think mourning in film, I don't know. I think mourning the death of a relationship, a friendship, is actually probably sometimes harder than a romantic relationship because everyone understands at some point romance is going to come to an end, right? Like that. But like friendships, we're conditioned and taught to believe that friendships last forever. And I think we really see that like breakdown in Padaric when he's like, I thought this was forever. You liked me yesterday and you don't like me today.
No, like I'm older, so like I had some really, really, really long lasting friendships that I thought would never end, and I barely speak to these people.
And they end.
Yeah, and that's just how it is.
But like also there's like a difference between having, I think, like a giant falling out and then like people growing apart. I mean, once you become an adult, like life becomes busy and it becomes hard, and you actively have to like make these choices to not ignore people or things like that. So I think it's
life.
It's life, and that's why I love movies like this, because movies are reflections of the world around us and the and how the collective is feeling. Obviously, that's why they're movies. They're universal. Anyone can relate to them. So I think this one really took me by surprise on how much I liked it.
Well, now that I know a little bit more about it, I'm like, oh, I kind of opened my eyes to like the things, because I was like, just watching it without knowing that like the thing you was talking about, the special you had seen, I just saw it as this movie, and I just thought it was very strange. Like, what am I watching? Why am I watching this? People are cutting their fingers off because they're mad at each other. I'm like, this is insane. But now that you've mentioned that, it reflects on the IRA and the Catholic battle, and I'm like, okay. I see this now.
Okay. Kyra's not crazy. She's not recommending bad things to me.
I was like, what has she got me watching?
No, so I would recommend it. I watched it on HBO Max. I'm sure you can rent it anywhere, but if you have HBO Max, it is free. This is not a sponsor for HBO Max, but they do have a great film selection, so I would definitely get that streaming service.
Yes, 100%. I was just watching Watership Down, a movie that we're going to be reviewing. So
I also watched that on HBO, so I guess we'll plug it twice.
Right? Go HBO.
Well, Ben, do you have anything else to add?
No. If you get a chance to watch Banshees, check out the special that she was talking about before you watch it.
Here, let me see if I can find it. I watched it on YouTube. It is a YouTube video essay, and it was, I thought, really, really interesting and really great. It's called The War Allegory and the Banshees of Inisherin by Socio Cinema. Please check it out if you can. I thought it was a really interesting video essay. It's really short. It's like 12 minutes long, but I think it really helped me understand more of the context of the film, because I knew going in these ideas of it, but at the same time, like I said, I try to learn as much as I can before coming on here so I don't sound like a complete and utter buffoon. But I do miss some things and maybe get lost in translation.
Nope. The buffoonery is mine. She can't have it.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and catch us next time on Woz Happening.